right, so you're ready to take your English skills on the road. Let's deep dive into English for travel. You're prepping for a trip, and you want to make sure you can handle just about anything, using your English to have an even better experience. You sent over 3 fantastic travel guides, and we're going to break down the most useful, surprising, and even some of the funny stuff they offer.
I really like how these guides go beyond just like basic phrases. You know, they really get into the cultural things that you might encounter so you can kind of avoid awkward moments
Yeah.
and connect with people on a deeper level.
I love that. Okay, let's start with something that I think every seasoned traveler knows. Pre-trip prep. One of the guides suggests creating a really detailed travel checklist. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I've got packing down pat.
Yeah.
But this is where it gets interesting.
They're really emphasizing that this checklist is for more than just remembering your toothbrush. It's about thinking ahead to possible hiccups and making sure you have everything you need for a smooth journey. Think about, visa requirements, passport validity, the details that can really make or break your trip if you overlook them.
Right, it's all about that peace of mind, knowing that you've got all your ducks in a row before you even get to the airport. Speaking of airports, let's be honest, they can be a bit of a maze, even for experienced travelers. And sometimes language barriers can really add to that stress.
Well, for sure. But the thing is, you don't have to be fluent to get around airports effectively. The key is having a few high-impact phrases, especially for those kind of tricky situations.
Okay, let's break it down. So imagine you're at the check-in counter, and you're a seasoned traveler, but you really want that window seat to enjoy the view. What's the magic phrase?
It's as simple as, "Excuse me, could I please have a window seat?" Don't be shy about asking. A lot of times airlines will try to help with that if they can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then there's that dreaded baggage allowance. Nobody wants to get hit with unexpected fees at the last minute.
Exactly. So a smart traveler is ready to ask, what is the baggage allowance for this flight? That way you can pack accordingly and avoid any surprises.
And speaking of potential hiccups, security checks, oh boy, they could be a bit nerve-wracking, especially with all the rules about liquids and electronics. These guides really stress how important clear communication is during security.
Yeah, for sure. Knowing a few key phrases like, do I need to remove my shoes and belt? Or can I carry liquids in my hand luggage? Can make things go much smoother and way less stressful.
Okay, we've checked in, we've gotten through security. We're practically pros at this point. But wait a minute, one of the guides mentions e-tickets. And I remember my first time with those. It was a little confusing, to say the least.
Oh yeah, e-tickets are becoming so common. It's great that you brought them up. They're super convenient. But they can be a little weird if you're used to paper tickets. Basically, it's like an electronic confirmation. That you can show on your phone, usually. However, not all e-tickets are the same. Sometimes you need a photo ID, or you have to find a QR code to scan. Knowing those little things can save you a lot of hassle at the gate.
That's really helpful. I wish I'd known that before my first e-ticket experience. Okay, we've made it through the pre-trip stuff. We've gotten through the airport. We're stepping off the plane, feeling excited. We're in a new country.
But then comes immigration and customs, which can be, well, intimidating, especially for first-time travelers.
What I really like is that these guides get that feeling of anxiety and offer specific advice for acing immigration and customs, like a seasoned traveler.
All right, give us the secrets. What are the magic words to breeze through this part? It's not really about magic words. It's about being ready and confident. Immigration officers are probably going to ask about why you're visiting, how long you're staying, and where you're staying. The key is to have short, polite answers ready. Like, I'm here for tourism. I'll be staying for 2 weeks. I have a hotel reservation at hotel name. Clear and simple goes a long way.
Makes sense. The guides also emphasize honesty and transparency, especially at customs.
Oh, absolutely. That question, do you have anything to declare? It's not just a formality. It's super important to declare anything that might be restricted or needs you to pay duty.
Right. It's not worth risking a delay or a penalty for trying to sneak in a few extra souvenirs. Okay, we're through immigration. We've got our bags, and we are ready to go. But how do we get from the airport to our hotel? It's where those fun transportation stories come in, right?
Oh, yeah. Everyone's got a taxi story, wild goose chases, unexpected detours. But beyond those stories, these guides actually offer some practical phrases to make sure you have a smooth ride, no matter how you're getting around.
So whether you're hopping in a taxi, navigating the bus system, or being brave and trying a rental car, you'll have the right phrases to get where you need to be.
Exactly. And one of the guides mentions that ride-hailing apps are getting more popular in a lot of countries, offering an alternative to taxis.
That's a great point. I remember using those on a recent trip. It was so convenient. You can track your ride, see the price ahead of time, and even avoid language barriers with preset destinations.
They're great, but it's important to know the local rules. And some safety tips, like making sure you know who your driver is and sharing your ride info with someone you trust.
Great advice. Okay, so we've gotten through transportation, maybe even with a funny story to tell later. We pull up to the hotel, exhausted,
Yeah.
but excited, ready to finally relax. What are the key phrases to use to have a smooth check-in and avoid any hiccups at this point?
The guides really stress clear communication, even when you're tired. Having a few phrases ready can make a big difference, like, I have a reservation under your name. IAT, that's a great starting point. Then you can ask things like, what time is checkout? Or is breakfast included? These little questions can save you time and confusion later on.
It's all about those little details that make the whole travel experience better. But what if there's something wrong with the room, like the AC's not working, or you need more towels? How do these guys suggest handling those situations?
They say to be assertive, but respectful. You've got every right to ask for help if something's not right, but being polite and clear will usually get you a better result.
So, instead of getting frustrated, we can channel our inner diplomat and say something like, excuse me, but the AC in my room doesn't seem to be working. Could someone please take a look?
Exactly. Clear, concise, and respectful. That's the key to a good travel experience.
All right, so we've covered pre-trip prep, we've conquered the airport, we've navigated transportation like experts, and even mastered checking into our hotel. Feeling accomplished, I know I am. But wait, there's so much more to explore.
You're right. We've only just started this deep dive. Now that we're settled in, let's talk about one of the most exciting parts of travel, trying the local food.
Oh yes, food is like a key part of experiencing a new culture. Picture this. You found this cute little restaurant tucked away on a side street. The smells are amazing. You're ready for some real local dishes. But then you open the menu, and it's all in another language.
Oh, don't panic. One of the guides has this interesting thing about dining etiquette in different places. It says that even if you don't speak the language, just showing a genuine interest in the food and asking questions can really make a difference.
That's so true. I remember being in a similar spot on a trip to Italy. The menu was all in Italian, but the waiter could tell that I was really eager to try the local specialties. He was patient, explaining everything, using gestures and a few English words, and we ended up having the most incredible meal.
See, it's all about that connection. But of course, having some key phrases definitely makes things better.
Okay, let's say we want to try something really unique to the region. What's the best way to ask about those hidden gems on the menu?
One of the guides suggests asking, what would you recommend? Or, what is the specialty of the house? This shows that you're open to new things and that you value the chef's expertise.
That's great. And if we're feeling adventurous, we could even ask, what is a dish that is typical of this region?
Definitely. And let's say you have some dietary needs or preferences. One guide gives some great advice on how to handle that. It really stresses clear and polite communication.
So instead of just saying, I don't eat meat, we could say, I'm vegetarian. Are there any vegetarian options available?
Right. And if you have allergies, it's super important to be specific. For example, I'm allergic to nuts. Could you please tell me which dishes contain nuts?
So important. It's all about making sure you have a good and safe dining experience. And speaking of enjoyable, one of my favorite parts of eating out is trying new drinks. Any useful phrases for the beverage menu?
One guide says to start simple with, could I see the drinks menu, please? Then, if you want something local, you could ask, what local beers or wines do you recommend?
I love that. Now, after a delicious meal, it's time to handle the bill. And that brings us to tipping, a really important part of dining etiquette.
Tipping, oh yeah, it's so different from place to place, even within regions. One guide actually has a whole section about figuring out tipping around the world. It says it's really important to do your research before you travel.
So important. In some cultures, tipping is expected, while in others, it can even be seen as rude.
Exactly. So before you head out for that foodie adventure, take a few minutes to look up the tipping norms for where you're going. It's a small thing, but it shows respect.
Okay, we've made it through the culinary scene. Our taste buds are happy, our stomachs are full. Now it's time to explore Museums, historical sites, those bustling markets, there's so much to see and do.
These guides are full of practical phrases and smart tips to help you get the most out of sightseeing. One guide even points out that in some cultures, it's rude to point directly at things, especially religious statues or artwork.
That's a great point. It's easy to forget about those cultural things when you're caught up in the excitement of a new place.
It really is. Let's say you're at a museum and you want to know more about a certain exhibit. One of the guides suggests asking, "Could you tell me more about this piece?" It's more engaging than just asking, "What is this?"
Great tip. It shows that you're really interested, and it encourages more interaction.
Exactly. And if you want a guided tour, one guide recommends asking, "Are guided tours available in English?" That way, you'll know you can understand everything.
What about those practical things, like admission prices and opening hours?
Easy phrases like, "How much is the entrance fee?" or "What time does the museum close?" can be super helpful. One guide even says to learn how to say, "Is there a student discount?" In the local language, it could save you money.
Great advice. Now, let's talk about getting around the city. One of the guides talks about how important it is to understand the local transportation system.
Oh, for sure. Knowing how to ask, which bus goes to your destination?
Mm.
Or where is the nearest metro station? Can save you a lot of time and trouble.
And one guide suggests downloading a transportation app for the city you're visiting. These apps can give you real-time info on buses and trains, help you plan routes, and even buy tickets ahead of time.
They're really helpful, especially if you're in a city with a complicated system.
Now, while we're out exploring, it's important to think about our safety.
Absolutely. One guide has a whole section on staying safe while traveling. It talks about how important it is to be aware of what's around you, especially in crowded areas or at night.
Right, it's all about being street smart. One of the guides says to carry a copy of your passport and keep your valuables safe.
And if you're ever not sure about a situation, trust your gut. And don't hesitate to ask for help or call the police.
Okay, so we've explored the city, immersed ourselves in the culture, and hopefully made some great memories. But there's one thing we haven't talked about yet: emergencies.
Right. We all hope for the best, but it's important to be ready for the unexpected.
It's that thing you hope never happens.
Yeah.
But you always got to be prepared, right? What about when things go wrong, like lost luggage, getting sick, or even losing your passport?
One of the guides actually has this whole section on how to handle emergencies when you're traveling. It really stresses staying calm and thinking clearly, even when you're stressed. I know it sounds obvious, but it's so easy to panic when you're in another country and something unexpected happens.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember this one time I was traveling alone, and I got totally lost in this new city. My phone had no service, the battery was dying, and it was getting dark. I definitely started to panic.
The guides have a lot of useful phrases for emergencies, but they also really stress being prepared ahead of time. Having a list of emergency contacts, knowing what number to call, like their version of 911, and carrying a basic first aid kit can make such a big difference.
Right. And don't forget travel insurance. One guide actually explains all the different types of insurance and what they cover. Honestly, it's a must-read for any traveler.
Absolutely. Now, let's say the worst does happen and you need medical help. One guide suggests letting a few key phrases in the local language like, "I need a doctor," or "I need to go to the hospital." Even if you can't explain all the details, those phrases can help you get help fast.
That's so helpful. What about that awful moment when you realize your passport's gone?
One of the guides gives step-by-step instructions on what to do, like how to report a lost or stolen passport. It even has contact info for embassies and consulates. It really emphasizes acting quickly and following the right steps.
So, even though it's not the most fun thing to think about, having a plan for emergencies can really give you peace of mind. It lets you focus on actually enjoying your trip. Okay, let's switch gears for a bit to one of the most rewarding parts of travel: connecting with locals and really immersing yourself in the culture.
These guides really highlight that. Even just basic English can open up so many possibilities when you're traveling. It's about going beyond just the basic transactions and actually engaging with people on a personal level.
I love that. It reminds me of this time I was at a local market in Morocco, and I was checking out these gorgeous handmade rugs, and the artisan, who didn't speak much English, could tell I was really interested. We ended up having this awesome conversation, using gestures, simple phrases, and lots of laughter. It was one of the best parts of my trip.
Exactly. It's those connections that make travel so special, and you don't have to be fluent to have them. One of the guides suggests learning a few simple phrases in the local language, like hello, thank you, and please, or a. Even those little things can show respect and make it easier to communicate.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to be a good listener. One guide points out that in some cultures, looking someone directly in the eye is considered rude, while in others, it's a sign of respect. Being aware of those cultural differences can help you avoid misunderstandings.
That's so true. It's about paying attention and being respectful of different customs and how people communicate.
Okay, let's say you're somewhere social, maybe a cafe or a bar, and you start talking to someone. Any tips for navigating those casual conversations?
One of the guides says to find some common ground, like shared interests or travel stories. It also suggests asking open-ended questions to keep the conversation flowing, like, what do you like most about living here? Or what are some must-see spots in the area?
Those are great. And one guide actually says to avoid talking about sensitive stuff, like politics or religion, especially when you're just getting to know someone.
Good point. It's always better to be safe and focus on making a good connection.
So what if you don't understand everything someone's saying? It's easy to feel embarrassed or get discouraged in those situations.
Oh, definitely. But one guide says it's totally fine to ask someone to repeat themselves. Phrases like, could you please repeat that? Or could you speak a little slower? Or totally normal. It shows you're really trying to understand.
Right. And it's important to remember that communication isn't just about words. Body language, facial expressions, even a sense of humor can help bridge the gap.
Exactly. One guide actually says to embrace those moments when you're not sure and see them as chances to learn and connect.
Even if there are a few bumps along the way, those interactions with locals can make your trip so much better. As we wrap up this deep dive into English for travel, I think it's important to remember confidence is key.
Absolutely. These guides have given us tons of practical phrases and helpful insights. But the most important thing you have is your willingness to communicate.
I love that. It's not about being perfect. It's about putting yourself out there, embracing those chances to connect with people, and using your English to make your trip richer and more meaningful.
Exactly. Every interaction is a chance to learn, to grow, and to make lasting memories.
So there you have it. Our deep dive into English for travel. All for you. We've talked about everything, from pre-trip prep to mastering those essential phrases, to get around in different situations. Now it's time to put all that knowledge to work and start your adventure with confidence and excitement.
Safe travels. And remember, the world is full of amazing people and incredible experiences just waiting for you to discover them.